Hello there, folks, and a very warm welcome back to What's for Tea. It's lovely to see you all, and I hope that I find you very well indeed. And today for you, I've got these wonderful tatty scones, or totty scones, or potato scones. Call them what you like. You know, they are absolutely delicious. They're very, very easy to make, and they're quite cheap to make as well. Very minimal ingredients. So I'll put the ingredients on the screen as I use them, but you'll also find them down below in the description box as well. So the first thing I've got there is some cold mashed potato. I am using leftover mashed potato from the day before, so it's lovely and chilled. You can of course make fresh mashed potato, but just make sure it's nice and cold. You know, if you do this first thing in the morning, they will be cold obviously a couple of hours later, so you can make them fresh, but I would recommend just using leftover mashed potato if you have any. And then some plain or all-purpose flour as well. If you want a fluffier potato scone, you can use self-raising flour. And then just a touch of butter. You can use salted butter or unsalted, it's up to you. I am using salted butter, and then I'm also going to add about a half teaspoon of salt as well. So that's everything that you're going to need, and this will give you about 8 to 10 big tatty scones. So the first thing we want to do is melt down the butter just so that it looks like this, and we're just going to add this in to the cold mashed potato, and we're also going to add the salt as well, and we're just going to stir everything together until it's nicely combined. I mean, this really doesn't take long at all. These are so simple, but they are absolutely delicious. We would typically have these, you know, at the side of a Scottish breakfast in the morning, or even on a roll, you know, with some bacon or sausage, something like that. And I know folk as well that just eat these on their own. You can have them cold or warm with a wee scrape of butter on the top as well. So yeah, they're quite versatile. Like I said, very, very easy to make and a Scottish staple. The next thing we're going to do is add in the flour. Like I said, I am using plain flour, but if you like a fluffier scone, feel free to use self-raising flour. So just give that a good stir through just until your flour starts to disappear into the potato and the butter. And once it's, you know, a good way in there, you can get in with your hand, and you just want to shape this into a ball. Just bring everything together in your hand nice and gently. You don't want to overwork this because you don't want tough scones. So just bring it together until it's just together and no more, and it looks something like this. You know, it shouldn't be sticking to your hands or anything. This isn't a sticky dough. It's very, very soft, obviously, but you should be able to, you know, to get it out the bowl in one nice big ball. And then the next thing we're going to do is flour the work surface. Again, I am just using plain flour for the work surface. I'm going to split my dough into two because I'm going to do 2 rounds of these scones. So I don't want one huge round of dough. I'm going to use 2 smaller balls of dough. So just weigh out your dough and then roughly split that down the middle. So I'm going to start with 2 smaller balls, and I'm just going to roll my dough out quite thin. You can do these as thick or as thin as you like. I like to do mine, you know, quite thin. Not too thin, you know, you do want to be able to pick these up, but, you know, not too thick either. So just make sure you get plenty of flour underneath your dough, press it down into a flat disc, and then get your rolling pin, and then just roll this however flat or how thin you want it. And I'm going to grab a side plate. You could use a dinner plate if you want bigger scones. I find a side plate works really well, and they just turn out, you know, the perfect size for us. And this will give you 4 scones per round, and like I said, you will get about 8 to 10 scones from this recipe, depending on how big obviously you make them. So I'm just going to drop my side plate on top. So this is bigger than a saucer, smaller than a dinner plate, somewhere in the middle. Just go around with your knife, cut away any excess dough from the side, just lift your plate up. Then we're just going to cut this into 4. Traditionally, you know, potato scones are triangles, but you can, you know, make them square if you prefer, or make them round with a cookie cutter. It's up to you, but I'm just going to show you the most traditional shape, which is obviously the triangle. Pop some more flour on the top. You want these nice and floury because as you cook them, it's the flour that's going to catch in the pan and give you that nice mottled effect that you get on the top and on the underside. So just cut these into 4. Use a sawing motion rather than a slicing motion. So yeah, it should be looking something like this, and then go over to your cooker. You want a sort of medium to high heat, not too high because you don't want them to burn, and not too low because you do want them to cook quite quickly. So sort of medium to high heat. So just pop them into your pan and leave them there for about 3 minutes. Then you will be able to move these around. You'll be able to flip them over. I would give these about 4 or 5 minutes on each side, just depending on how dark you like them. You know they'll be ready to flip when they've got this nice mottled effect on the top. Like I said, you can make these as dark or as light as you like. But bear in mind, the longer you cook these, you know, the drier they will be. I like mine quite soft inside, so it's entirely up to you. But like I said, the longer you cook them, the drier and harder they will become. So yeah, I don't like to cook them too long because I quite like the texture, a sort of softer middle. And like I said, you can let these cool completely and have them cold with a wee bit of butter, or nice and warm with a wee bit of butter as well. So just keep flipping them over until you're happy, and then I'm just going to remove them and pop them onto a plate I've got at the side there. And like I said, I did make 2 batches of these, and then I had enough left over for another 2, so I got 10 of this size from this recipe. And you can freeze these as well, but what I would say is, you know, if you're going to freeze these, do put some greaseproof paper in between, just so that they don't stick together. They do freeze really well and defrost and reheat really well as well. Or you can keep them in an airtight container for a few days, but I wouldn't keep them too long. They start to go a wee bit funny after that. But if you can, I would just use them all right away, obviously depending on the size of your family. Or if you don't need as many as this, you can obviously half the recipe, and that will give you 4 or 5 scones, you know, if you don't need too many. So I'm just going to try a wee bite of one of these because I couldn't wait. I'm much too impatient, and they were really warm and squishy inside. There's nothing like these things, you know, when they're fresh. When you buy them from the shop or the baker, you know, they tend to be quite dry and quite hard, but when you try them fresh from the pan, they've got a completely different texture. But obviously as they cool down, they become just the same as you get from the baker. But they are lovely, so you can stack them up on a plate if you like, if like me you're planning on taking a picture of them. But if not, I would just get stuck in and devour straight away. Like I said, these are lovely at the side of a cooked Scottish breakfast with bacon, sausage, tomato, mushrooms, haggis, all that good stuff. But they are very popular as well on a breakfast roll, which I also do have a recipe for, which I will leave down below, for a batch of morning bread rolls with a wee couple of slices of bacon, or even a square sausage, or a couple of link sausages, whatever you like. So I'll just let you see what they're like inside. You should be able to pull these apart quite easily without the whole thing falling apart. And these were just perfect texture inside as well. So do let me know if you're planning and giving these ones a go. Like I said, very, very easy and loved all over the country for a good reason. They are really tasty. So like I said, thank you so much for watching if you're still here at this point, and a huge thank you as usual to the supporters of the channel over on my Patreon page, and to the channel members here on YouTube as well. For you all for watching and leaving your lovely comments, those that share the videos, those that have bought me a coffee using the Buy Me a Coffee link, and those that have left me a super thanks donation for the channel. And I'll catch you back here on What's for Tea very soon. So until you join me again, have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care and bye for now. Bye now.